You guys are all wearing the same things you were wearing in episode 1.
This is actually my skin. I'm not wearing anything.
I hate that so much.
Today, we're talking about one of the greatest fantasy series of all time.
I'd say the greatest.
I would agree.
Besides Bionicle.
Debatable. We could debate that in another episode. This series won awards and has been made into movies
And animes.
And questionable TV shows.
And books.
And it started out as books.
Yeah.
That's right. You guessed it. The Lord of the Rings. Wow. Hammer
It's time
drop.
to talk about Lord of the Rings.
Now, we've all read Lord of the Rings multiple times, right, guys?
All of us assuredly have.
All of you guys have.
Wait a second, Jesse. That was suspicious.
Oh, what was?
The way you said all of you have instead of all of us have.
Fine, you got me, Joe. I haven't read any Lord of the Rings books, including the Silmarillion or the Hobbit.
Well, maybe we can give you a quick synopsis of what of the books are.
A quip synopsis?
Well, I think that maybe I'd like to start by explaining a little bit of why we're jumping directly into the Lord of the Rings instead of something else. Like, maybe we could have talked about food or horses.
Breastfeeding. Continue your thought.
Yes. Well, you see, somehow, I actually don't know how somehow we've been associated with Lord of the Rings a lot. And I suppose it's probably due to Andy's social media.
It probably has something to do with it.
Somehow we found ourselves doing things like signing copies of The Hobbit or reading The Hobbit from the stage and all of that, which we love because, as you might have picked up, we love The Lord of the Rings. So
All of them do.
all of us do. Anyways, that's why we're talking about this now. So, William, here's what I was thinking. Instead of us giving a synopsis of The Lord of the Rings for Jesse, we should have Jesse give a synopsis of The Lord of the Rings for all of our listeners.
That's a good idea.
Sort of an
actually.
outside look in.
That's a great idea.
All right.
Wait, should we start with the Silmarillion? Start from the very
Okay.
beginning?
Okay. Start from the very beginning. So to be clear, I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies. I think I even saw a Hobbit movie, but I only remember random scenes and not anything really pieced together. So we'll see how this goes. So the Silmarillion. This is a book where the world of the Lord of the Rings is created. And then there's a bunch of people that do things for like 3,000 Lord of the Rings years. And then the Hobbit happens. So now the Hobbit.
That's actually, I just want to say, that was actually a pretty good summary. It's pretty accurate.
Really nailed it.
I don't even feel like I need to read it now.
Although I will say Age 3 itself was almost 3,000 years long.
Oh. Ages 3 and up. For the Hobbit.
You know what I might do really quick? And we can edit this out in post.
Oh, no.
I might go get my Lord of the Rings encyclopedia just to have on hand in case we have any pressing questions.
Oh,
It's a great idea.
Oh, that's
go
a great
quick,
idea.
Joe. We'll wait here.
Don't
Okay.
worry.
A few moments later.
I grabbed the encyclopedia, the
Show the
Silmarillion,
folks, show the viewers your collection.
the Hobbit, and just the Lord of the Rings books. I figured just in case we have any like fact checking we need to do,
Yeah. Okay.
we might as well have them on hand.
So we've just done the Silmarillion, and now we're on the Hobbit. So the Hobbit, there's this really short guy, and he's like, I'm going to take a trip with my friends, some other short guys, but of like a different degree or race, I guess. And then they take a trip, and they do everything that happens in the Lord of the Rings, but in a child-friendly way. And then they come back, and that's that. Then we get to the Lord of the Rings, and this is where the fun happens. So the main guy, he's just kind of in his home, on his home planet. His name's Luke Skywalker. And he's just chilling in the Shire. And then comes this wizard named Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he's like, hey, you have to go to Mount Dune. There's like this ring. And so Luke Skywalker's like, oh crap, okay, I guess I'll go do that. And so he starts walking. And then there's other guys with lightsabers / swords. And then there's a big battle where lots of like ugly guys are killed. And I'm not sure if they're killed because they're ugly or if because their morals are less than. And then there's but there's like a little ape man too that's kind of following them around. C-3PO. And they make it to Mount Dune after this big battle, and Luke's like, I have to go destroy the ring. But the ring has this power and it like wants to take him over, but his best buddy, Leia, has helped him out a good ways, and they're finally making their way up Mount Dune. But then here comes C-3PO right on their tail, and they get up there, finally throw the ring into the fire. C-3PO bites off somebody's finger and then falls in and dies. And then they leave, and there's a galactic star destroyer that comes by, picks them up. Obi-Wan Kenobi grabs them, and then they head back to the Shire. And that's about a synopsis of Lord of the Rings.
Well done. I don't even need to open the books to fact check.
Heck yeah.
Agreed.
I think you were spot on.
Yeah.
No, the only thing is that it wasn't an Imperial Star Destroyer, it was a Venator.
Oh.
It's a Republic Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
They're great because they have hangar bays that open up, and then a lot of the V-Wings, which were kind of that era's TIE fighter, exit.
I believe you. Yeah. So, what's your favorite or actually maybe your least favorite part? And you can't include the Sloverminian.
Just least favorite part of Lord of the Rings?
Mm-hmm. Like just, okay.
For any reason. Could have been like maybe it was a boring part, or maybe you didn't like a character or whatever, any reason.
That's actually a really tough question.
Yeah.
I want to see the Blue Wizards. If you don't know what that means.
Like the two wizards that faded into the east.
We don't know what happened to them.
Well, there's a theory because C.S. Lewis wrote the Space Trilogy, and in the third book of the Space Trilogy, he has Merlin. And there was like this whole plan between Lewis and Tolkien. I think. I might be wrong. I think that they had this plan to release like more books together in which like the wizards from Tolkien's universe who disappeared end up in C.S. Lewis's universe.
Wait, what if they're the two that go to the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
The Wicked Witch of the West, and then the good other one. Or there are two there's three witches, aren't there?
There should be four, because like there should be one for each cardinal direction.
Oh.
But we never meet.
The east one died.
Wait,
right?
we never meet the other two?
The North and the South witches?
Well, no, because there's the good witch, and I think she's the witch of, I haven't seen forever, for like of the North or something.
Yeah, Good Witch of the North. Wicked Witch of the West, obviously. But in the very beginning, one of the witches gets like smushed by a house, and
Which
we
is
only
the
see her
east.
feet. That's the East Witch.
Yeah. Oh. And then the scary little men come out, and they're like, the Wicked Witch is dead.
The Ewoks. Yeah, but then we never see the South Witch. That's an option. Just saying.
Could be them.
What other parts of intrigue or least favorite part? What about that part in the movie where Legolas like runs on bricks that are falling? What's that? Is that Battle of the Five Armies?
Yeah, that's from The Hobbit, and that kind of feels like cheat. I mean, if you're asking
different thing,
like least favorite part of the movies, I think that's probably easier.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, the omissions in the movies, which I understand. Like, I understand why he did it, but it's still, we never got to see Tom Bombadil, which is sad, or like Glorfindel, or
I think
like,
the omission of the very end of Return of the King with the scouring of the Shire, I thought that was kind of disappointing, just because I feel like that's a very interesting ending, and we just kind of, the movie is about 4.5 hours long, so it's understandable why they cut it, but I would have liked to seen it.
You should do a Zack Snyder cut.
Where it's all black and white.
Yeah, and it's like 5 hours long.
No, my strong opinion is that they did Mirkwood dirty in the Hobbit movies. Like, there were a lot of issues with those movies, but the biggest is that Mirkwood is supposed to be kind of the apex of Bilbo learning to become a hero. And they just turned it into like a weird drug LSD trip looking thing in the movie. And it's like friggin' like 10 minutes long or something. It should be the entire second movie should have been Mirkwood.
You really wouldn't like 2000: A Space Odyssey.
Sad.
But here's an unpopular opinion. I don't hate the Hobbit movies, and I'm tired of pretending that I do. They're awesome.
Interesting.
They're stupid, but they're awesome.
I like the first one. I think the first one they nailed. And I will say, like, okay, the scene in the second one with the barrels that, you know,
That's the only scene I remember.
yeah, like that's a very memorable scene for good or for bad. And I think I've slowly, like, scenes like that from the movie, I've slowly changed my opinion on for the better, because I'm like, I feel like Tolkien was like, you know, it's like a kid's book, and he was like, I'm going to make it silly and crazy. And so, you know, I still don't know if I love them, but I am like, rolling bomber in the barrel is not so far off from, you know, them throwing plates at each other in Bilbo's house and like catching them or something.
Which one would you show your kids first?
Oh, Lord of the Rings, 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Or the first one with all the scary, like, Ewoks coming.
Do you mean like
everybody.
which one would I like introduce first, like in their lives, like like book wise or like movie wise? Oh yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Book wise, definitely The Hobbit.
I'm going to staunchly stick by first Hobbit movie good. Second and third, they aren't bad, but they are not good. They're a degradation in quality.
These bats were bred for one purpose. War. I think the inclusion of the, like, them like putting Legolas in, and then the like the elves, like the elf dwarf romance thing, like that was like pretty
unnecessary,
kind of painful to watch for me.
I'm reading this book called The Children of Ash and Elm, and it's sort of like, it's not exactly a history of the Vikings, but more of like a painting a picture of who the Vikings were during the Viking Age. And it's kind of interesting to see, because, you know, Tolkien was really pulling from that era of folklore. And so it's kind of interesting to see the way that, you know, like elves and dwarves sort of, quote, started out in Viking lore and then became, like, you can't say dwarf without thinking of a short little bearded man with an axe kind of a thing now, but that's not at all what the Vikings kind of thought of dwarves. So it's kind of interesting. I learned that the directions, what are they called? Cardinal direction, north, south, east, west, come from that Viking aged or maybe earlier mythology where they believed that the world was a skull and it was being held up by 4 dwarves.
Whoa. Called
something like Nudri, Sudri, Estri, and Vestri, something like that. I'm probably pronouncing them wrong, but north, south, east, west.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
And also the days of the week. So you probably already know of a lot of the days of the week, but so there's already 2 days for the sun and the moon, Sunday and Monday. And then Tuesday was like for the god Tyr, Tyr. And then Wednesday is Odin's Day. Thursday is for Thor, Thor's Day. Friday is for Freya's
brother. Freyr, the brother.
Okay. And then what's funny is Saturday is just like a day for bathing, but it's named after the Roman.
Like Saturnalia?
Not the festival, but just
like
Saturn.
The god.
Named after Saturn. But I think the Vikings just like took a bath on that day or something funny like that.
Good for them.
Yeah.
As well.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I were talking about the origins of like all those sort of folk lore characters and races, and like kind of asking the questions of like, how did you know, when you say, like you just said it, when you say dwarf or elf or something, we automatically have a picture that's probably pretty accurate and like consistent through, you know, at least the last 100 years of any like fantasy. Like, I don't know.
I think that all comes from Tolkien, honestly. I don't think there's anyone before him that did what, like, he kind of defined fantasy genre from what I understand. Unless there's just others that I'm not aware of, but he definitely like shaped elves, dwarves, and that kind of thing.
Definitely had the biggest impact on like cultural definitions of all of those things. I don't know if he, I don't know. Like, did he like?
Are you aware of anybody like earlier that made a?
Well, I'm trying to think of like who, you know, he was influenced by. Like you were just saying, like the Norse stories of dwarves and everything.
But
then there's
Saxons and stuff. Beowulf.
I've never read like George MacDonald or some of the other people, or Andrew Lang, some of the people that really inspired him. But so
Andrew Yang.
I don't really know what's in there. But
one thing I find fascinating, and I don't know if like I also have not read any of those people, so I'm speaking a bit from hearsay. But in our era, like there's been kind of like a in-goodening of a lot of creatures. Like I think like if I had to guess, like the dwarves holding up the skull of the earth, or elves from like the 1800s children's stories, you would not want to run into those.
That's probably
characters.
accurate. Yeah.
And that's interesting, where like they've kind of, in Tolkien's universe, they take on aspects of humanity and they become good, for lack of a better term. But whereas like in the 1800s, they were almost more like, don't go outside alone, little Timmy, or the elves will eat you sort of vibes.
Okay, here's a question, maybe. When and how did The Lord of the Rings start to make an impression on you, and how do you think it's impacted your life?
Well, I think I was 8 years old when the first movie came out. And I remember I read the entire first book. That was my first introduction. All my friends were stoked on The Lord of the Rings, and I wanted to go see it. It was the first movie I ever saw in theaters, which is a pretty cool thing. I don't know why I didn't see a movie in theaters till I was 8. That seems like a long time. But anyway.
Was it the same way, though?
I read the book and I loved it, and then went and saw the movie. And so, yeah, I just kind of deep dove into Lord of the Rings ever since. Many decades since I've, come back and revisited all the books. I reread them maybe every 2 or 3 years, and I feel like I get something else out of it every single time.
I don't remember exactly when I was introduced to Lord of the Rings, but it was early in my life. Like, I remember reading The Hobbit in 2nd grade. I remember watching from the Butte Public Library. You could rent these really cursed animated versions of The Lord of the Rings that were awesome.
Yes.
They were amazing.
Are those from the 70s or something?
They sure are.
Yeah.
And I remember like loving the stories and then loving reading the books because it filled in all of the holes. Because like, of course, they're animated and they were all under an hour long, so you're missing so much of the story. I'd say like what I take away from Lord of the Rings in my music and in my life is just trying to like be more thankful of the present, because you've got like a huge theme in Lord of the Rings, and like just the overarching theme, the more that you read the Silmarillion and dive into Tolkien's universe, is this concept of everything fading away. This concept of people, especially the elves, are trying to preserve the remnants of what they remember from thousands and thousands of years ago. And back in those years, they were working with the remnants of what they had before that. And then they're leaving Valinor, which is like even before time started. And everything that they had in the first age is a shadow of that. So it's just like remembering that things we have here are precious. One of the things that Tolkien does that's really unique too, compared to say like other stories I love, like Star Wars or Star Trek or Aragon or whatever, is Tolkien places a high value on beauty and equates it with good. So you see, like, Minas Tirith isn't just useful because there's 7 walls. It's beautiful, and like beauty is something that's being lost in addition to power. It's not all about like, oh, I have enough magic to blow up 8 cities. Like that thing, those things existed. But like what was more important is that they could build these works of art. And when they fall into ruin, they can never quite recreate that. And I think that's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I remember after I saw episode 1, The Phantom Menace, after Qui-Gon Jinn was killed by that orc, it really stuck with me. I remember acting out that battle a lot as a kid, where I was Obi-Wan, and I got stuck with the red wall thing that I never knew what it was.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can't jump through it for some reason, even though like you just don't know why. And then hanging in that little hole and staring at your lightsaber and willing it to come over to you, and then bam, halved.
Yeah. But he'll come back somehow.
If you think about it, Darth Maul, one entity, was then made into 2 dwarves.
Diminishment.
It's basic math. Actually, my first encounter with Lord of the Rings was actually the first Lord of the Rings movie in like 2000 or whenever that came out. And I remember being like, oh, this is a little bit scary. So I don't know if I actually watched the full movie when it first came out. But I thought, oh, okay, whatever. It's a random fantasy movie. Had no idea. Then the next year there's another one. I was like, wow, people really dig this whole Lord of the Rings thing. And then the next year there was another one, and I was like, oh, okay. But from my perspective, it was just like a random fantasy movie that everybody liked.
I also remember when the movies came out, and I don't know, I was probably like 6 or something, and my parents would not let me watch them. My mom's way of getting around it was like, you can't watch the movies till you read the books. So I read the books when I was like 7 or 8. And then she was like, you still can't watch the movies. And so then I just would read the books like again and again. And then I think we also watched that cartoon version from the 70s, which was phenomenal. And so I just became obsessed with Lord of the Rings. And then I think eventually I was allowed to watch the movies, and obviously, you know, they're so good. My like big takeaway from it all is like similar to you, William, where it's like he kind of captures like the sadness of like there. It's like not every ending has to just be happy, and sad isn't a bad thing. Like there's like no sadder and yet more fulfilling scene to me than Frodo sailing off into the West at the end of The Lord of the Rings, where it's like you just want to like cry because, you know, he's leaving Samwise at home, but it's also just so wholesome and beautiful that it's like, yeah, I don't know, just the picture of like if everything just has to be happy all the time, and like happy equals good and good equals happy, then you kind of miss out on the beauty of, you know, the end of something. And like that, like the whole, like a wholeness doesn't necessarily have to mean just happy. I don't know. There's like depth to it. And also I feel like he captures hope really well, because he'll go into these like really dark monologues where, you know, it's like Sam and Frodo in Mordor, and it's like everything is dying and we're, you know, our friends are far away and Sauron is winning. But I feel like every time he goes through a dark monologue, he ends it with something like Sam seeing the star up in the sky and being like, oh, there's something above all of this that's worth fighting for. And I don't know, I really love the way he captures hope.
It's a nice tinge.
Yeah. They're pretty cool.
What's this one? This isn't. This is the complete guide to.
I was gonna play a game.
Oh.
This is the Lord of the Rings encyclopedia, and I'm just gonna open it to a random page and say what
trivia.
it is, and then someone has to tell me about that thing.
Cool.
So, all right, Hador.
Ooh, crap.
It's when you're about to leave your house and you're like, hat or a coat.
This is painful. It could be one of the men from the kind of those men who come and help Gondor in Return of the King. It could be one of those people. It's not Hurin. That's what my first thought was. That's my best guess.
I want to say it's a man from Beleriand, however you pronounce that, in the First Age.
I believe you are correct. It is first age. Aiden of the third house, elf friend and hero, son of Hathor, father of Galdor and Gundor. I think Galdor eventually, is that like Baron's line?
Or maybe he might be one of the first men to ever read.
Oh, he helped Fingelfin. Fingelfin's the bomb.
Okay, we're going to go over here.
Okay.
Tell me about Radbug.
Radagast?
Radbug.
This episode is sponsored by Radbug.
Grab your VPN from all of the online shopping.
Radbug?
Radbug.
Sounds like an orc name or something, if I had to guess.
Radbug. It is an orc.
Okay.
It's the orc of the Tower of Cirith Ungol. Shagrat squeezed his eyes out when he refused to pay an order after the fight with stuff and things. Okay.
Nice.
I would like Earth Ungol would make a cool house. Obviously, you wouldn't want it in Mordor.
Okay, how about Fanwidhol? Fanwidhol.
Fanduil?
Fanwidhol. Fanuyidhol. Fanwidhol.
It's like an eagle.
Oh, yeah, it's an eagle, or it's like a first stage, like some sort of first stage group of like elves.
I think it's
something.
a place. It's my guess.
It is an elvish name for Bundeschaster.
Of course.
Of course. Also called Fanwidhol the Grey.
Well, that's good.
Have you guys even read this book? Okay.
Yes, Jesse.
What's Brego?
Oh, that's a horse.
Wait, is Brego a horse?
Or a
That's
hobbit.
not like that's not a dude.
Wait, I thought Brego was Aragorn's horse.
Isn't it like Brego's son of Baldur or something like that?
You could be right. You could be right.
I want to say Brego is another one of those like first age guys who comes in and teams up with the elves.
What is it, Jesse?
Joe's pretty dang close. Let me see. Man, second king of Rohan.
Oh.
He drove the last remnants of the orcs and Balchoth out of the wold and built the Hall of Medusoiled. Brego died of grief over the loss of his son Baldur.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
hey, you were close. I bet you mentioned Baldur.
Yeah. Okay, maybe this one will be easier. How about Keepers of the Three Rings?
Ooh, yeah, so that'd be Galadriel, Gandalf, and Elrond. At one point, before Gandalf was the keeper, there was Círdan, the shipwright.
Held Narya, yep. And then Gil-galad.
Was an elven king.
Who used to hold Elrond's ring before.
Oh, here's one for you. How about Orfalch Echor?
Or Falch.
Or it could be Orfalch Echor. I'm not sure. It's a CH sound.
That sounds like a place to me.
Somewhere in Ithilien is my guess.
It is the last barrier on the main entrance to Gondolin.
Oh.
Never mind.
Well, so it's like a gate?
It says this is the last barrier on the main entrance. Oh, a deep ravine in the southwestern Tumleden, leading up the tunnel from Dry River.
I bet that's where
it was barred by
Gothmog
7 gates.
fell.
You're probably right.
Hey, how about one more? Let's go towards the end of this here book, see what crazy things we get back here. How about Waymeet?
Waymeet?
Waymeet.
Oh, is that like... Oh, no, that's not the... I was thinking of like the moot.
This episode brought to you by Waymeet.
Grab your VPN and add it to your online shopping cart through Waymeet.
It's meat made of dairy. I'll give you a hint.
I'm going to guess it's like a meeting place.
It's 15 miles west of Bywater.
Oh, it's like a hobbit town.
It's a village in West Farthing on the Great East Road, 15 miles west of Bywater. Waymeet was so called because the main road from Sarnford joined the Great East Road at Waymeet. Waymeet was one of the headquarters of the Chief's men during the WR.
The War of the Ring.
Oh. Called Waymoot on the Shire map.
Ooh.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, if you have joined us. And hopefully you'll choose to join us again.
Go find a patch of grass and roll around in it a bit. You deserve it.
Unless you're allergic. Thanks, everybody.